Greetings and welcome to this latest edition of Farhang Connect Live. I am Alicia Keys, Executive Director of Farhang Foundation here in Los Angeles. We are a member-supported, non-political, non-religious, not-for-profit organization with the sole mission to celebrate and promote Iranian art and culture for the benefit of the community at large. Thank you for joining us from all over the world today for a very special conversation with two amazing Iranian trailblazers. Today's featured guest is Melody Ehsani, the visionary designer and entrepreneur behind the uber popular brand ME, a streetwear brand specializing in jewelry, footwear, and clothing with a message. As a creative director and CEO, Melody has built a unique brand that meets at the intersection of street culture and activism. Melody's footwear designs are some of the most coveted shoes on the market today. She most recently announced her role in Foot Locker's 12 Days of Greatness drop, and previously her ME and AJ1 fearless collaboration with Air Jordan sold out in under 2 minutes. Favored among streetwear enthusiasts, celebrity stylists, and fashion editors, Melody and her designs have been featured in Vogue, Hype Beast, the LA Times, Flaunt, and countless music videos, television series, and films. Melody's gift for forecasting trends and social conversation has led her to other collaborations with titans such as Michelle Obama, Lauryn Hill, and the Wu-Tang Clan. Additional supporters for the brand include Rihanna, Beyonce, Alicia Keys, Billie Eilish, Yara, Shahidi, and Lena, Waithe. Our next guest and host for today's conversation is none other than the fabulous Tara Grammy. Tara is an Iranian-Canadian actress and playwright and one of the hosts of the hit series Persia's Got Talent. Tara recently starred in the romantic comedy A Simple Wedding opposite Rita Wilson, Maz Jobrani, and Academy Award nominee Shohreh Aghdashloo. She has received millions of views for her tremendous following on social media with her hit sketch comedy character Manijeh, whom I'm sure we all love. Her unique multinational perspective inspired her to create her award-winning one-woman show, Mahmoud, which she co-wrote, produced, and starred in. I am happy to also announce that Tara Jan and Persia's Got Talent will be returning back to NBC Persia on February 22nd, so mark your calendars. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Melody Ehsani and Tara Grammy. Good morning, ladies. Good morning, Melody. Welcome to Farhang Connect.
Good morning. Thanks so much for having me.
We're delighted. Thanks for taking the time on a Saturday to be with us. Good morning, Tara Jan.
Hi.
Hi. Hello.
Thank you. Thank you, Tara Jan, for joining us. We're thrilled to have you both here today. And I will step back and let Tara Jan take it from here. But before I leave, I want to remind all the guests with us watching that we will hold a Q&A towards the end of the program today. So please submit your Q&A questions through the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. So without further ado, I'll hand things over to Tara Jan, and I'll be back later for the Q&A.
Thank you so much, Adi Rezoju, and thank you, Farhang, for doing this. Thank you, Melody, for being here. I'm just excited to talk to you. This is this is awesome.
I want to know about Manijeh. She sounds crazy.
I'll send you some videos after. I'm glad you haven't seen them at first.
Yeah,
because you get kind of a neutral me, and then you'll see the other side of me later, and you'll be like, "What happened?" Thank you. Well, first of all, I just did this, but I was actually just going to start by like name dropping. I was just going to start name dropping because I think that's like a natural way to start an interview. Just like name drop like Erykah Badu, Michelle Obama, Serena Williams, Beyonce. Just just a few of the names that like your name has been next to: Air Jordan, Reebok, some really big American names that an Iranian name is next to. And I personally made my name Tara Grammy to water it down. We spoke about this before. I went from Get On Me to Grammy. And I was wondering if it was intentional for you to keep Ehsani, or if you just, you know, just kept it because it was your name. But, or did you intentionally keep it because it's a part of your identity?
Yeah, I think it was really hard for me to separate from it. Well, first of all, my dad passed away when I was 10, and I still feel like I have a really close relationship with him, and I kind of want to carry that name. And you know, it's just something that I'm really proud of. Even, you know, I have aunties like my auntie Furu, who passed away this last year. She married a Ugandan man and became an Olinga, but she always kept her Ehsani. And I think that it's just a trait of the women in my family. And I felt like I needed to continue to carry it forward.
That's so cool. I can't tell you how cool it is to see an Iranian name next to these big names. Just even as a young artist, just knowing that, you know, we can do anything too. It's really cool. Yeah, I really wanted to talk to you about the idea of an immigrant hustle, because I wondered, I was watching all your videos, and you are like incredibly driven and incredibly passionate about what you do. I read all about how you were selling your clothes and shoes that you made and jewelry that you made out of your apartment. That's how you started out. You moved to Guangzhou and just learned the manufacturing business. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, it's incredible. And I wondered, do you think that was partly obviously your own personal drive, but do you see that immigrant hustle? Because I was raised by a single mom. I think you were too. And I see it in myself, in my drive, in my, I just don't give up. I just keep going. And I always think to myself, this is partially me, but partially there's this immigrant, especially female hustle, like insatiable need to keep growing. And I wonder if you also see that in yourself.
Totally. I mean, it's really interesting because we come from, I mean, a lot of cultures come from this survival sort of place. So I think Iranians particularly, especially since our parents had to leave the country due to a revolution and uproot themselves. And it just feels like there was such an orientation towards survival, which is sort of all or nothing behavior. And when, you know, being a first generation here, you still kind of have that embedded into your DNA. So I didn't realize until I was way older what a privilege it was to even explore something like my passion. You know, it wasn't an opportunity that was given to our parents. And so I think it's just the perfect hybrid, that immigrant sort of orientation towards survival, and then combining it with the privilege of being like, wait, I can choose what I want to do, and I can follow something that I believe to be a greater calling, as opposed to something that just puts food on the table. I definitely think that there's something to that for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a really good way to put it. I thought of it that way, but I've never been able to verbalize that it is like it's like a survival thing. Mm-hmm. and being privileged in being in America, you know. That's so cool. Also, I'm also a big fan of all of everything that you do. Especially, I love your jewelry line. I got a Melody Ehsani bracelet that's way too big for me, and I used to have 3 of them, but my friends would like them, and I just gave it to them. Yeah. I was like, here, you can have it. So what I find so cool, among other things about you and your brand, is that it's affordable. It's affordable. You could easily hike up all of your prices by like 300%, but you don't. You keep them so that everybody can have them. It's accessible. Yeah. And I'm sure that that's important to you, and I just wanted to talk to you more about it.
Yeah, it's interesting. Actually, this is so timely because somebody just had that conversation with me not too long ago. And they were like, I don't understand. You could charge so much more. Why don't you charge so much more? And after I left that person, it sat with me so wrongly inside. And I really thought about it, and I prayed about it, I meditated, and I spoke to a friend of mine, and I thought about why I do this or why I started doing this. And it was always to serve a certain demographic of people. And if I were to hike my prices up, that's cool. But then what about the people that I serve now that couldn't afford my stuff anymore? And truth be told, I would do it for them for free anyway. So it's not, it's really about the community that I serve and the people that I serve and what I've created, and not so much about what I could get for it or where it could live. It's just, it's what it's who I want to serve.
That's incredible. This idea of service is something I also think about as an actor when I'm creating things too. I think it helps you align better with why we're here and why we're even creating in the first place. So that brings me to my next question, because watching all your interviews, I was so deeply touched by your ideas, your spirituality, your idea of divine intervention being part of what led to the opportunities, other than obviously the hustle and just a factor in what led you to where you are today. So I was wondering, obviously this has been a really challenging year for everyone, and I wanted to know how spirituality has influenced your approach to work this year specifically. Have you had to like tune in more, tune up more?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, oh, well, for me, it's been really, really my only home. I got married right before the pandemic, and I moved into my husband's house, which didn't really feel like my house at the time. And so I felt homeless in a sense, where I didn't have any of my senses of physical home. And I really feel like I had to go inward and find what that looked like in myself and what that orientation was like. And it's kind of what's grounded me this entire time. But I think a question that I'm constantly asking myself is not just who I am, because I'm a designer, I'm my mom's daughter, I'm, a woman, I'm an Iranian woman. And I believe the who question is really important, but I also ask myself a lot what I am, because I think that we're so much more than the who. We're these entities that are so much bigger than these roles that we play. And I don't think that you can truly ask the question of what you are without asking where you came from or what created you. And so that's always a journey that I seem to be on, or it's always a question that I come back to. And I think that my particular spiritual practice helps me get there. And I think everybody has their own way, and I love that it's so diverse, that one person can do it this way and the other person can do it this way, and it doesn't matter how you do it. It's just about having some kind of practice that gets you there, whatever the there is.
Absolutely. Wow, yeah, I've started meditating more during this time, just to get to that place, because when you're like in the rat race, it's so much harder to somehow. So it's been good to see that.
Totally.
Yeah, that's great. I wanted to also talk about, just to keep going with this theme. So your whole thing is, you create clothing, you create jewelry, you create shoes, but everything has a message.
Mhm.
Do you think that it's really important as a brand to have a bigger message? Like, do you think that that's vital in what we choose to wear and how we choose to adorn ourselves? Because I feel like where we're at in the world right now, it's less about it feels like things need to have more meaning. Like I feel like the whole world is searching for more meaning. And do you think that has grown in what brands need to be, or do you think sometimes it's just like whatever, just like to look cute, like you just wear things to look cute?
Yeah. I mean, I think there's room for all of it, you know. I really do. I feel like the more aware I've become of, just the more awareness I've developed overall, I think that I've developed a keener eye towards like what was really designed with love, and you know how much thought something put into something like you can really feel it if you look at an art piece, if you look at any kind of product. It could be a vase, it could be a cup, and there'll be something about it where you know it was created with intention and thought and love. And I don't know what the mystery of that is, but I've kind of become more aware of it. But then other times you just want to buy something that's trendy and maybe you don't want to spend a lot of money on it, and it's fun and it serves a purpose. I think it's so personal. You know, it's like it's I think it's about what you need, because I don't know how you are, but every day I dress, it's like my armor, what I put on. It prepares me for who I'm going to see and what I'm supposed to deal with. And, you know, it just sort of, I'm like, what will empower me today to feel like me? So I could just not worry about my physical appearance and just be free and be able to do what I'm supposed to do today. So clothing to me and accessories are a big part of that. Like anytime I put a certain ring on, it makes me feel like, you know, my grandmother's with me, or, you know, it's just, it's like all my little pieces that I put together that just prepare me for the day.
I love that.
You can get that from anywhere, anything, but I do feel like it's become more trendy more recently, because I think a lot of companies are so afraid
Absolutely.
you know, being called out. So they're just kind of like scrambling, which, you know, is cool as long as they figure out an authentic way to do it. But
absolutely. Yeah. Doing it with authenticity is, and consuming it with authenticity is the hard part too. That's great. That's a lot for me to think about because I love a little bit of fast fashion sometimes. Anyway,
we all do.
sometimes like a little bit, you know what I mean? Okay, so I have a personal question. It's not that personal, but I mean, so if you, little Melody, right? Like little, like let's say 8-year-old Melody, if she were to, you know, have like a button that shows her where you're at right now, where, you know, you are the most successful female in this industry, in the streetwear industry in particular. You've worked with everyone, you've done everything. What do you think little Melody would be the most proud of?
Wow.
Of all your accomplishments?
That's such a hard question. I think that, you know, when I was, I'm trying to think where I was when I was 8 or 9, and I was obsessed with like Paula Abdul and Janet Jackson. And, you know, I grew up in that era where I was really trying to model myself after them. And I never associated myself, you know, it was like what I paid attention to from when I was really young. It's like I always paid attention to pop culture and culture. And it was something that you know, I read all the magazines and I just consumed all the material. And I never thought that there would be a place for me in it, because I was like, well, I can't sing, I can't dance. And I looked at it so kind of narrow-mindedly. So to be able to think that I was able to utilize this very small and random thing that I have always naturally paid attention to and been good at, and then take it and turn it into like have a role in it and have a you know, like have a career in it. I think would blow my mind. Like if I could think about 8-year-old me and think like I could have been the one that designed the key earring that Janet Jackson wore. I mean, I was like mind
Or the
blowing.
cover of the Erykah Badu album.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of mind blowing that I could. It's not even that I would have the opportunity. Like the thought didn't even occur to me. Like it wasn't even anywhere in my sphere, like my sphere of reality.
Wow.
So to even know that it was an option is crazy. It's just so crazy.
I mean, it's
I
incredible.
I can't communicate how out of my realm it would have been. So it's kind of cool. Or that I would have my own Air Jordan. Like I remember when I got the shoes and my name was next to the Jumpman, and I was just like, this, unless outside of it being a bootleg, I never thought, you know, it's just so out of my realm of, yeah, it really makes me cry. It makes me emotional because it's just, what? Like, how did
it
that?
makes me cry as like an Iranian girl. You know what I mean? It's just because we don't, I mean, I didn't think that Iranians could do anything when I was a kid too. I don't know why. I just thought, I just was like, I'm not like them. I'm like over here, you know?
Yeah. Well, I think it goes back to that survival thing because so many of them were displaced too. Like, how many of your friends' parents did you call mohandes who like owned a used car dealership? Or,
absolutely,
you know, it's like doctor so-and-so, but he's not actually a doctor.
Oh yeah, I wrote an entire play about an Iranian engineer who's a taxi driver in Toronto. I wrote a whole play. Yeah, it's kind of, our identities were so displaced, and so yeah, especially as a kid, it was always like, oh wow, like I love the white, look at what white people can do. Like maybe if I'm blonde, I can do that.
Yep.
So that's really cool. So another thing that I wanted to talk to you about what would you say in all of this was your biggest internal struggle to get to here, to get to the moment that little Melody can be proud of? And what was your biggest external struggle?
Mm-hmm. I think my biggest internal, well, first of all, it's a process. So
of course, yeah.
My biggest internal struggle up to now I think it's been becoming free, like really feeling free to be me, because I feel like there's so much projection on us all the time of what we should be and what we could be and what we should be doing and how, and you know, what we should look like while we should be doing it. And there's all these narratives, and they come from so many different historical cultures, whether it's like being a woman, being an Iranian woman. And so those pop up all the time. It's a lot of things to navigate, you know. There's just a lot to navigate about that, because sometimes I'll feel like I'm not enough to do something. That's usually the test for me. It's like, why don't I feel like I'm enough for this? Like, I know I'm good, but I'm not good enough for this higher thing or this next level. And so getting to the root of those kinds of things is always a challenging struggle, because you have to go back and figure out, where did this start? Who planted this seed? Sometimes it's generations of this belief that has been passed down from every single woman in your family, for example, or it could be, you know. And so there's often times that we feel these feelings like, oh, if I do this interview, it's not safe. It doesn't feel safe. But why? You know, is there some kind of agenda that is trying to keep me in my place? And what is my place? So it's just constantly this seeking of yourself, you know, like, and like I said, asking like, who am I? What am I? What's my role here? What do I really feel as my role? And that's a struggle. It's an ongoing struggle. It's a practice. It's a real true, it's like working out and developing muscles. It's just this constant questioning and developing of awarenesses. In terms of external struggles, I think it's really, for me, the biggest struggle is just the systems in place. You know, we've been built upon a very heteropatriarchal system, and it doesn't benefit anybody other than white men, you know, or men. And so it's trying to, I think by nature, there's a part of me, and I think you're the same way, where we're trailblazers. You know, it's like we're doing things that nobody in our family has ever done before. Sometimes we're doing things nobody's ever done before in our specific way. And that's really challenging when you've never been considered. You know, it's like, there's so many times where I come into the room and somebody like me has never been considered from any standpoint. And so I have to occupy that whole entire space and make sure that every part of me is considered. And it's exhausting. And it's really, really challenging because sometimes I don't want to be that person. I don't want to be the first. You know, it's hard being the first. I'd rather have somebody else go scout it out.
Second, third, fourth, yeah.
Third, like, sure. So it's often like, really? Why me? And then people are like, oh my God, it's so cool you're doing this. And I'm like, is it though?
It's cool for you.
It's cool for you because you get to be second. I have to see if the bear is there and is going to attack me. So I think that that's a struggle. And then
that's a struggle.
It's so much that goes along with it in a physical world, because it's like, how are you getting compensated for something? Are you being seen or recognized for it? And, you know, so it's ongoing.
Yeah, very ongoing. I had so much. I was like, I feel like you and I should just like talk later about this, because I relate so much from in my industry too. It's I mean, it's two different worlds, but it's kind of what we're up against all the time, the patriarchy.
Yeah.
Okay, so to that point, you at first went kind of the prodigal Iranian daughter route of studying law. Mm-hmm. And then you did the pivot into design.
Yes.
Do you ever have moments where you're like, should have been a lawyer? Because I literally have a should have been a lawyer moment, like at least once a month.
Really?
Where I'm like, why am I doing this?
Wow.
Because the struggle, and then as you were talking, and I knew I was going to ask you this question, and you were like, you know, what is it that's holding you back from not feeling like you're enough for this thing? I was like, oh, maybe that's why. Maybe lawyers just aren't enough, and I'm actually enough because I'm just like struggling. So anyway, do you have those moments ever?
No, never. Not a single time. In fact, I have moments where I think, thank God I didn't do it. And I think it's because I've realized that anything you do is hard. You know, what I'm doing is really hard, but I love it. Like I said, I would do it for free. I would do all of this stuff for free. Whereas I can't imagine doing something that hard that I don't love. And I just didn't love it enough to work that hard for it, so that I think that I would be a much different person. I also think that something that shifted me at the very beginning was really seeing the nobility in what people did. And, you know, recognizing every single role as having, we don't know how important who is here. You know, it's like, we don't know what role is really moving the needle in what way. We have an idea, you know, we think, but not in our human brains. I think we're like, oh, lawyers and doctors are at the top. They're changing the world. And it's not true. You know, it's not necessarily true. I know plenty of doctors that are horrible and horrible. And then I know garbage collectors that are literally changing neighborhoods because of the love that they put into what they do and how they connect with every single person and house on that street and how they beautify the neighborhood. And so it's like we really have our priorities mixed up in terms of how we look at roles and things like that. And when I went into fashion, I didn't think, I was like, this is so superficial. Why am I going to be doing fashion? And then once I realized the nobility in it, I'm like, oh, that's just the vehicle. It's just a way for me to put out what it is that I am through this thing. And that's what's important. And so, if I didn't do fashion, I'd do it another way, but at least I really love fashion. So there's things about it that keep me there, versus with law, I would have just torn off my pantyhose at some point, and my 2-inch kitten heels, and just given up.
I completely agree. I think it's like also programming, like you said, like we're just kind of programmed to think that, especially being Iranian, especially coming from these immigrants, that just were like, well, this is the highest level of education, and this is like how we'll be respected, and doctors are always respected because what they're doing is noble. We don't want our kids to be artists. Like, what nobility is there in the arts? But then when you get to a place, and I don't know, I'm sure your mom is so proud of you. My mom has a lot of moments where she's like, no, I'm glad you study theater. I'm glad you study theater. I'm proud of you study theater. Even though when I was going in to study theater, she's like, really? You're really going to study theater?
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Well, but look at how many of how many of the Iranians from our parents' generation are really unfulfilled.
Absolutely.
Because they didn't do that stuff. And their parents did the same thing to them that they tried to do to us, but they didn't benefit from it. But I think that there's something about the safety of repeating something, even if you know it's going to fail, because there's like a certain amount of control in it, versus doing something completely different and not knowing is terrifying.
Absolutely. Okay, I wanted to talk to you about Iran. So I saw these beautiful pictures of you on these amazing trips to Egypt, to Guatemala for inspiration. And I just wanted to talk to you a little bit, or just pivot into how Persian culture, how Persian aesthetic has influenced your work. Have you been to Iran? Do you think you could ever go to Iran for an inspiration trip, maybe?
Yeah, I know. I've never been to Iran.
Wow.
I know. It's crazy. Well, I practice the Baha'i faith, and Baha'is are heavily persecuted in Iran. So unfortunately, it hasn't really been safe for me to be able to go, which is such a tragedy. But my family, on my mom's side, some of them worked for the Shah before the revolution happened. And on my dad's side, I have a whole other story. So it's never really felt completely safe to be able to go, even though I talk to friends that occasionally go that still have family and business there. And it's totally fine for them. I just don't know what it would be like for me, but I am heavily inspired by Iranian culture. I've never actually done a deep dive into it as a whole, but I've always been more so inspired by like the poetry. Like Rumi was my first favorite poem, not because he was Iranian, but I was just obsessed with the writing. It's like I would read a translation, and then I would hear what it sounded like in the original way that it was written, and my whole mind would be blown, because I just think the Iranian language in itself is so deep and it's so beautiful. Like there's ways of saying things in Farsi that there's just no justifiable translation for. It sounds so stupid. It's just so hard to translate the feeling and the emotion, and the language is so beautiful. And then the food, I mean, The food is like an art form in itself, and the architecture, I've really been into the architecture. I know that Iranians were the first to do indoor gardens, and I'm obsessed with indoor gardens. And so it's always been that kind of like cultural thing. But in terms of design, I've never really utilized aspects of it because I don't know enough of the history well enough to get into it, you know.
That's so funny because I actually feel like your jewelry
Mhm.
totally has Persian vibes. Like this is like the most Persian
That's
maybe
true.
bracelet I own. Like there, you do have it. But maybe it's innate and you're not even aware of it.
I think so. A lot of the stuff that I do doesn't have a direct reference. I think it's just my environment growing up.
That's awesome. That's really cool. Okay, so I always talk about this dual identity thing, right? This there's a generational divide where our parents were very much Iranian. Mm-hmm. And then they raised us, and we talked about this before too, where like both our moms were really strict about us speaking Persian. And, you know, we grew up with this dual identity. So who we were out on the streets and then who we were at home. So what kind of advice do you have for like someone who's watching right now who is struggling with these two identities? How would you say, like I always say, I found my thing. I found theater. I found storytelling. And that was my way of merging my two identities and creating my own unique identity. But how do you have any advice for people that maybe are into design and having that dual identity crisis?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really important to explore and see what's available to you, because when you grow up in a certain kind of environment, sometimes you don't know the options that you have because your family or your culture might have only orientation to certain things. And so I remember when I discovered hip hop, you know, it was the first time where I really feel like I found myself out in the world. I was like, oh my God, these people are talking about how I feel inside. And it was such a reflection of me. And so that's kind of what I kept seeking in the world, is where do I find more of me? Where do I find information about me? Because that's so important, especially if your parents aren't seeing you at home for what you are. You know, they have a projection of what you should be. And so I think it's really important to try to see yourself, you know, like really see who you are outside of any external influence, and just research yourself. You know, it's like, what movies do you like? What do you pay attention to? You know, and then I think that it'll just sort of naturally merge along the way. Like I remember growing up, there were so many things about being Iranian that I was kind of embarrassed of. You know, like I'd go to school and my mom would make kutlet and ghormeh and put it in like Tupperware and send me to school, and you know, for lunch.
I have there's a whole section in my play about that too, where the little girl, she's like, I smell ethnic all the time.
And so it's like, those are things that really embarrassed me. But then when I look back on it, I'm so happy that I can speak Farsi fluently. Like I talk to my mom, I can understand the language. And that means a lot to me now, because I would have never learned it later. And I'm so happy that I was exposed to those kinds of foods and had those kinds of experiences, because it really informed. I found other people like me later, and it was a point of connection, and it just made me more aware of who I am and what I am. And so I think it's just really important to feel free. Like, what empowers you to feel free and to explore all those things without fear of being judged, or fear of somebody telling you that, you know, what you're doing isn't noble, or, you know, low class, or you know, whatever.
They all say that, don't they? They all say that.
Yeah.
All of them.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
And
they're all the same person too. Yeah. I hate, sorry to Persian moms watching right now. I just want you to know you are all just each other.
Same.
Because we talk and then we're like, my mom yelled at me in the exact same way that your mom yelled at you.
It's so true. It's so true. So yeah, I think having freedom and finding support for that is important.
That's really good. I'm super inspired by that. And then your idea of spirituality. And you've said this a few times now, this what we are. Mm-hmm. What are we? Not just who are we? I think that's a tough one, but also a really important one. Okay, I just want to ask you fun questions now. Can we talk about the Lakers? Because I feel like we should just talk about the Lakers. Are you a big fan, or because your husband's a big fan?
Yeah, no.
Are you also a big fan?
Yes, I'm also a big fan. I grew up being a fan. I mean, I was born here. So my dad was a fan. I remember watching games with my dad. And so it has a really special part in my life.
Oh, I love
They're going to win again. I mean, yeah, they are.
This lineup is amazing. I personally take every opportunity talking about the Lakers to talk about my disdain for Kyle Kuzma. Please don't leave the conversation. I find him to be not a great player and undeserving of being on the Lakers. Thank you so much for listening to that. I apologize to anyone who's left. That's how I feel. I'm not from LA. So here's the thing. I love talking to people from LA because there's just a different vibe. People from LA, born, raised here. It's like a whole different thing. And the culture of LA is also its own thing, which is so cool in your work too. You're also such an LA girl, like, so it's so different from because being from Toronto, that you are not what I thought of LA at all. Mm-hmm. You know, it's when I actually moved here and I married someone who's from LA. He was raised here. He also grew up watching the Lakers and has been obsessed with it. And I just got into it so much. And I realized that it aligned kind of with who I was, even though I'm not even from here. I mean, I'm from a very different place with a very different aesthetic. So yeah, this is a great place to be and grow up. And it's really cool that a Persian girl is kind of now my image of aesthetically what LA is.
Yeah.
I love that.
LA's confusing. You know, there's so many people that come here for Hollywood. So it's so much of that. And then, but when I feel like when you meet actually people that were born and raised here, it's different.
It's so different. It's so different. I always have this conversation where people are like, oh my God, I can't believe you moved to LA. I'm like, you're not talking about LA. You're talking about Hollywood.
Yeah. There's a big difference.
Hollywood and LA. A huge difference. Do you find that, because your work has made its way to Hollywood, I mean, obviously, do you have like a favorite Hollywood moment that you'd be willing to share with us? Like a moment that was like, whoa, this is like a Hollywood, like, I don't know, working with Rihanna or working with Beyonce. I'd imagine Beyonce would be like regal Hollywood.
Yeah. You know what is funny? I always, I mean, of course, those are amazing moments, but I think that I always, the times where I freak out is when it's something that I don't expect. You know, when I like Beyonce and Alicia Keys and these people, I've always kind of felt like they're part of my tribe, sort of. We're very like-minded in a lot of ways. And we have the same kinds of like, I see them, I get them, I understand them, but it's always somebody that I don't, or who's not on my radar who comes where I'm like, whoa, this is so cool. And I think it was with Susan Sarandon. She came into I know, she came into my store one time and we ended up hanging out for an hour and she bought all these earrings and we were talking about design and I was like, wait, you want to wear these earrings on your ear? They're for you? What? Like I couldn't believe it. I was like, wait, really?
You sure?
Yeah. And she was like, I love these and these are so great. And she totally got it and understood everything. And I was like, wow, it's so cool. Susan
She's
Sarandon, she's a legend,
a true legend.
a true legend, but I would have never, ever thought, you know? So things like that really are cool for me.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
That's Susan Sarandon. That's a big one.
Yeah.
Oh, hi.
Hello.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. I didn't want to interrupt. I was enjoying the conversation so much, but we're reaching towards the end of the talk, and I wanted to
Oh,
have some time for some questions from the audience.
okay.
So I don't know if you're finished, Tara John, but I
I can
could
keep
go on.
going.
I know.
I will keep going if you let me. So you should stop me now. Thank you so much for answering. I still have more for you. I'm gonna email you on the
I'm gonna
side.
hang out later, yeah.
First hang out later. Okay, great.
I know I didn't want to come back on because I was enjoying it so thoroughly, but I know that we have a lot of questions, so some great questions. So I wanted to also have the audience participate in these questions. I'll jump right into them. The first one was, as a business entrepreneur, how did you start your business? This was a very popular question. With no previous experience, and what advice do you have for someone thinking of starting a new business in fashion?
Mm. It was really hard. I didn't have any experience. I didn't know anybody in the field, and I didn't have any reference point for what it meant to be a business person. So I just kind of navigated it the best that I could. I did a lot of internships where I tried to learn things from people as much as possible, just from observing how other people did it. So my first internship was at a sneaker company, and I kind of learned the process of production and design. And I was like, oh, they use these programs and they do this thing. And this is where a lot of shoes are manufactured. So I would do research. And this is also a way different time. This was 12 years ago at this point. It was before Instagram, before um, a lot of the resources that we have now, before Alibaba. So now I feel like it's much more easier, but I think the short answer is just internships. Do as many internships with people that you admire or that you want to learn from or you think you can learn from as possible.
So yeah, pay your dues. It doesn't
Yeah.
come easy. It might seem that it comes easy, but you really have to pay your dues. Another great question we had was, I loved your designs using the Shirin Neshat artwork for the Broad show you did, and how did that collaboration come together, and what inspires you about Shirin Neshat?
Oh, that's a good question. The collaboration came together. I was in touch with the people at the Broad for a while. They wanted to work with me, and we just hadn't found the perfect thing to work on. And then as soon as the Shirin Nishat project came along, they thought it would be really special. And of course, I was honored being familiar with her work. And I mean, I love her. I love who she is, how she carries herself in the world, and I love how outspoken she is, because I really feel like, especially Iranian women, are not supposed to be loud or in the front or outspoken. And she's just so unapologetic about it that it's really, really inspiring to me.
Yeah, she is very inspiring, I think, to a lot of us Iranians, and she's an amazing person, a human being. So I was personally thrilled to see those pieces from you as well in the exhibition. This one is for Tara. I love Manije. When can we expect more Manije, and do you have plans to doing a film or long format show with her?
Whoever's willing to fund a film or long format show, just, DM me. There's a little bit of manager coming, but there's other things coming too. Other newer characters, different characters are coming. There's collaboration that I did with another creator with Manija, and then I'm shooting a whole other thing. So there will be content coming from me soon. But Manija, I'm thinking of doing just like Instagram lives where she critiques what people are wearing.
Oh, perfect.
So that's kind of all she wants to do anyway. So yeah.
I think we all relate to that character because everyone has a manager in their life or
100%
is manager. So.
She is a real person. Yes. She is a real person.
Yes, yes. So I'm excited to see those lives. Melody, a great question. I love that you are so spiritual and that activism is part of your brand's DNA. What do you attribute this to?
I don't know. I've been like this from when I was young. I think my dad dying had a lot to do with it. I think that I experienced loss in a really big way when I was young. And I think that I needed to find a way to cope with it or to understand what it was and what it meant. Because when you're 10 and you're going through grief, it's not like you're like, oh, I'm grieving. You know, I didn't even know what the word grief meant. So it just kind of feels like you're spiraling down a black hole and you're just like, what does this mean? And so I think it really made me start going in as a young kid and then also identifying with struggle, people who struggled and people who were really going through stuff that was heavy and deep at a young age. Because it was like, wait, this person, you lost this person because they were murdered, or it just made me really attuned to it.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. Let's see, one more question we have for what brands or what designers do you admire or do you look up to? And also, it's a two-part question. And are there any upcoming collaborations that you can tell us about?
I don't think there's anything that I could talk about yet collaboration-wise, but there are some things coming this year, which I'm really excited about, but you will know soon. And designers that I admire, sure, there's a lot of people. Most of them are my friends. I have my friend Beth, who has this company she just started called Beffy's Beauty Supply, who I love. And my friend Angelo has a brand called Awake that is really great, that I love. I think that there's a lot of things in the streetwear scene right now that are sort of percolating, whose messages I love. There's this guy, Tremaine Every, who has a brand called Denim Tears that I love. Yeah, there's a lot of cool things in the pipeline.
Great. We'll all be anxiously waiting. One question that we got a lot of is, are those Air Jordans ever going to be reissued? Because people are dying to have them.
Yeah, Melody, can I know this too?
You know what? It's I'm nobody. It's Jordan. You have to talk to Jordan about it. I would reissue them for everybody. I mean, I really am into democratizing product. I don't like doing limited anything. So if we can get Jordan to release them, I'd be so happy.
Do you have my kid's number? I call him right now.
Michael Jewell.
I call him myself.
Michael Jewell.
Hi, Jordan.
Dr. Jordan.
Hi, Dr.
Mohandes.
This one's for Tara. Tara, I love your film, Simple Wedding. It was so great and so nice to see a mainstream Hollywood film starring Iranians. It gave us a lot of pride. Any plans for a sequel?
Again, if you would like to fund a sequel to A Simple Wedding, no, that's really sweet. Thank you so much. I think it's a really great rom-com to watch. We created it because we loved watching rom-coms when we were kids, and Persian in it, you know. But yeah, we'd love to. But I'm working on, my whole thing is I want to claim the genres I grew up watching. So I'm working on claiming another genre which you'll see soon. I can't talk about it.
Oh, exciting.
Yeah, thanks.
That's really exciting. I wish there was I mean, it's kind of crazy that on TV, there's still no representation of us, really. I'm like, why hasn't somebody developed a family show about Persians? Like,
there's one coming called Chad with Nassim Pedrad. She plays a 14-year-old Iranian boy.
Oh. Wow.
Yeah, love her. It's, which is super cool. But other than that, yeah, I really want to make it even more mainstream to be Persian. I think there's like something like 5 or 6 million Iranians living outside of Iran.
Yeah, we need Iranian-ish.
Yeah, Iranian-ish.
Great. I think we have one question, time for one more question. And that is for Melody. Can you talk about parental support in your life? How did I think you touched base on that a little bit with your mom, but how did your mom or your parent, obviously your mom or your family support you in what you decided to do?
I think it was confusing. She's on this call. I'm sure she's watching right now.
Hi, Mom.
Hi, Mom.
Hi, Mommy.
Yeah. I think that it was confusing for her at the beginning because I was on this route to law and doing all this stuff. And then all of a sudden I was like, I want to be an artist. And my mom is a painter. She's an incredible painter and artist. And I'm not a painter at all. I can't, I can barely draw. And so I think she was very confused. She's like, you're not an artist. And I was like, well, there's different kinds of artists who do things in different ways. And I think she just didn't understand it. So there was a while she thought I was depressed. And of course, the rest of my family, they were just really confused by it. So I didn't receive a lot of emotional support at the beginning, but my mom has always been such an incredible provider that she did set me up in a way where I did feel like I could take a risk financially because I knew that I could move in with her and she would support me. But now, I think after I got into it, there was a period of time where my mom was working for me. She was coming in and she was making a lot of the jewelry and she was giving me design ideas. And so I think that it had a full circle moment where after I bought a house, she was like, wait, maybe, she saw the value in it. But yeah, no, now she's very, very proud of me. And, she still continues to give me ideas and is very supportive.
That's wonderful to hear.
Yeah.
It was probably great that she came from an artistic background as well. So I don't know how fast this hour went by. It really flew by. I feel like it's only been a few minutes that we started talking, but I can't
I have like 50 more questions, guys. I have 50 more things to ask.
Part 2. Thank you again for taking time out of your weekend to be with us. I want to thank all those who have joined us from all over the world today to be on this talk. If you happen to miss any part of it or want to see it again, or you want to share with your friends, we will be posting this on all of Farhang Foundation's social media platforms, as well as on farhang.org. Thank you, Tara John, for hosting and interviewing this. It's really great working with you always. And of course, thank you to Melody John for being here tonight or today and to share all this information with us and share about yourself. There are a lot of people are so interested in what you've done and accomplished, and we really applaud you. And as a fellow Iranian, we're very proud of you for achieving what you have achieved, and we wish you lots of success and continued success, and we're all behind you. So thank you.
That means a lot. Thank you so much.
Without that, I'm just going to say goodbye, and we will see everyone next time. Thank you.
Thanks, Tara.
Thank you, Melody. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.